Hello, this is the Muffin here. I'm going to be talking about the MS-1 and what really makes this tank that big of a deal. A lot of players that had come in after 5.5 had never had the experience of playing this thing. They don't necessarily know what it is. But according to this video that Wargaming has recently announced, they talk about how by popular demand they are bringing the MS-1 back into the game. Now, a lot of players that come into Blitz, they play Tier 1, they play Tier 2, and they move on, and they're not really there to stick around to play the lower tiers. They want to get to the higher tiers. And even for myself, I remember having the MS-1 back in the day. I've been playing Blitz for about 7 years. And the MS-1 was just one of those tanks that I had played. I had known, in fact, the best Tier 1 at the time. But it wasn't a tank that I had really played a whole lot. If you look at the original stats of the the MS-1 was a good tank, and these were some of the other competitors that it was up against back in the day. When there was these older Tier 1 tanks, you had the Light Tractor, the T1 Cunningham, and they've made a lot of different changes and updates. And looking at the MS-1, it was a very well-rounded tank. And it not only just very well-rounded, it was probably among the best Tier 1. It had some of the best penetration, best alpha. Its accuracy wasn't the best, but you kind of start getting into that Russian accuracy a little bit early. Okay, gun depression wasn't the fastest, but it definitely was the most well-armored. And from looking at the tank from the front, it's got a lot of these very steep slopes that these other tanks, when they came across it, could easily bounce off of it. Now, I think the graphics do look really amazing, but a lot of the hype around this was just the fact that this was one of the best Tier 1 tanks in the game, and anyone coming into Blitz and playing this thing and even had experience playing things like the Light Tractor, this thing was a beast. Now you can see this is the very old interface. This replay was actually about 4 years ago, very old replay of the MS-1 and what it was like. Now, Wargaming has announced that this tank is going to be coming back in the game as a Tier 2. Because of that, I am sure it's not going to have the same exact stats as it did 4 years ago when this game was in Blitz. I can see it still having the same similar performance in terms of that good armor, that good alpha, that good penetration. Wargaming, because this tank is such an iconic tank, they're not going to want to disappoint the player base. This is going to be a good one. Will it be OP? Will they make it OP? I don't necessarily think they'll make it completely broken or OP, but I think a lot of those attributes that made the Blitz community love this thing is something that they're going to really want to hang on to. Now, when coming across these tanks like the T1 Cunningham, these were the original first tier tanks that were in the game and that were all removed. Now, will World of Tanks Blitz end up bringing tanks back like the T1 Cunningham or the Tractor? It's not very likely. These tanks weren't something that were very, very loved outside the MS-1. You can see here some of these other tanks like this Vickers taking shots at this MS-1 and just how many bounces that you can get. None of these other Tier 1s, and you can easily see as the MS-1 is aiming at some of these other tanks, it has no problem in penetrating it. It can easily cut through. There's not a lot of red shade showing you where you can or can't penetrate. Now, when looking at the MS-1, even Tier 1 tanks had different turrets and cannons and things of that nature. The tank that you're looking at here in front of you is what the MS-1 looked like when it wasn't fully upgraded. The tank that they're going to be releasing at Tier 2 is going to be the fully upgraded version of the MS-1. Now, one of the things that I think is very interesting about the MS-1 coming back into the game, and especially the announcement on how Wargaming had said that by popular demand they are bringing back the MS-1. There's a lot of talk in the Blitz community of Wargaming not listening to their player base at all. And there are still some things that I think they could improve on, but this I think is a step in the right direction, where the community wanted something like this back in the game. Wargaming had listened to that. Every once in a while, you may see when you first log into the game a survey that pops up. And they're putting money into that survey to get the feedback so they can understand how to develop and improve their game more. I can assure you this is going to be a good tank. It's a fun one to play at tier 1, which will now be tier 2. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of the hype behind the MS1, why it's so exciting that this tank is coming back. This was truly the loved tier 1 vehicle at the time when Blitz was a newer game before update 5.5. Now, the funny thing is yeah, is it cool this tank is coming back in the game? Of course. I honestly think more tanks the merrier. But the funny thing is, I think it'll be one of those tanks that I'll get, and I'm glad I got back, but I don't know how frequent I will play it. Because the thing about Blitz is that I don't really play it for the lower tier tanks. I actually find playing low tiers very, very quite boring. When I play Blitz, I am not playing it for the lower tiers. As a matter of fact, I spend 99% of my time playing Blitz in tiers 7 through 10. I never really play lower tiers. So even though this is really exciting that the MS1 is coming back, I can see me getting it, maybe playing it a little bit. I'm glad it's back, but I'm right back to the higher tiers. So let me know what you guys think. I'd be curious to see if this would be a tank that you guys will play all the time, if this will be something that will end up making you guys play tier 2 more frequently. Going back and playing tanks of tiers 1, 2, and 3 just seem very puny. So you'll have to let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this vid. This is the Muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.